Welcome to a brand new series of Hearsay. Over the next 6 weeks, I'll be putting top politicians and sports stars on the spot, asking why some relationships don't work and should religion and politics go hand in hand. Would you die for Britain? We talk to those who fought in the war against the Nazi idea of a master race. And we'll find out how near scientists are to creating a super race.
Yes, and while Jackie takes care of the scientists and such like, I'll be finding out what our studio audience think of the things that we're going to be discussing and chatting about. So, hello, what's your name?
Hello, my name's John Douglas.
So what sort of things do you think we ought to be talking about?
Well, I hear that the programme is about comedy, yeah?
That's right, about comedy. So, Jackie, what can we do for them?
It's good news. Tonight's programme is obviously about comedy. We'll be talking to comedians who've been a familiar sight on our screens for years, as well as a new generation of theatre-based comics, and one of these is Sheila Hyde.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, there I was, sitting in my kitchen, minding my own business, when the doorbell rang. Aha, I thought. Could it be Eddie Murphy come to insist that I star in his next movie? Or perhaps it's Roland Gift, hell-bent on ripping off his clothes and smearing himself in golden syrup. Better go and see, I thought. Whew. Opened the door. It was my friend Jasmine. And the first thing she said to me was, "Sheila," she said, "I'm a new woman." And I thought, damn, new woman means a new look. She'll want to borrow my makeup. So I rushed upstairs, grabbed the cat, gave it a complete cosmetic and facial makeover, thought she can't use any of that, it's been tested on animals, rushed back downstairs. But it turns out she does not want to borrow my makeup. So I have to go back upstairs, cleanse, tone and moisturise the cat. God, was I annoyed. Not to mention the cat. She just landed a modelling contract, all that down the drain. Anyway, back downstairs, and in my absence, Jasmine had laid out on the kitchen table all these packages of naughty underwear. You see, she now feels that as a new woman, she can wear crotchless peekaboo panties and a suspender belt without feeling embarrassed. I still think she should wear a skirt over the top, but then that's just me. Anyway, I should have seen it coming, I must say, because I remember the other week, right, we were in Boots, stocking up on ozone-friendly tampons, and suddenly, Jasmine rushed over to the perfume counter and said to the assistant, "Oh, excuse me, but which one of these perfumes adequately expresses my total femininity? Which one of them speaks to all the aspects of my womanhood? Is it this one? Psh! The sensuous woman. Or this one? Psh! The independent woman. No matter," she said, "I'll take them both, for I am the new woman. I'm feminine, but forceful. Silly, but sussed. A bimbo with a briefcase."
Sheila is serious. Sheila's brand of comedy is finally getting the kind of exposure it deserves, thanks to people like my first guest, who is the co-director of the Black Comedy Club, which aims to promote comic talent, David Bryan. David, welcome to the show. People like Sheila have been around for quite a while, but we're just starting to see them. Why is that?
I think they haven't really had a platform to perform on before now. Over the last year or so, there's been a whole variety of new openings, partly what we've created ourselves, that have given people like Sheila and many other performers somewhere to go and explore their talents to a mixed audience and also to a black audience, and I think that's really quite critical.
Right, so where are these venues then?
These venues are beginning to spread, they're primarily in London, that's where the whole drive kicked off from. Brixton Village was one of the home bases for this, and then also the Albany in Deptford, and from there we spread on to Hackney Empire, and more recently we're now going outside London.
Right, so tell me, I'll open the can of worms now, is there such a thing as black comedy?
I think there is, but I mean, it's not one definable style of work. I mean, you've seen Sheila. Sheila is very, very different from many of the other performers we have, and I think it's much more about black comedy being a platform for comedians to use a whole variety of styles.
Is black comedy then for black people, if we're trying to decide what it is?
Black comedy it goes beyond black people. I think it really is about providing an audience with black performers who are quite confident about their work and are doing their work that makes them feel quite proud of themselves, at the same time making the audience laugh, and I think that's quite critical.
Now, I know you've been involved in the Black Comedy Club. Tell me a bit about that. How long has it been going for?
September will be a year, and we hope to celebrate that event with a major two-day show. But it's been a slow process, and over the last year, we've been doing it in a large number of small venues around the country. So it's been a very hard and slow slog.
So why start it?
I think we got hooked into the whole enthusiasm and the joy of seeing people like Sheila perform, and thought it must move on from here. It must actually expand and be shared throughout the whole country. And we just kind of ambled along, enjoying it as we went along and doing it more for fun than for business.
But speaking of business, are you making money with it then?
I'd like to at some stage, but it hasn't happened yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Colin, let's talk to the audience about black comedy.
I'm quite interested in how we define what, in fact, is black comedy, because it seems like comedy is comedy, surely. Let's take an opinion from the chap just up top of the stairs here. What do you think black comedy is all about? Is there such a thing? How do you define it?
There is black comedy. The comedy I like is culture.
Culture comedy?
Culture comedy.
Well, that's weird. Culture comedy. Earlier on, we were talking to this guy who also felt that black comedy was important, that culture was important, and that some of the stereotypes that came out in comedy before were eradicated, I think.
Well, I wouldn't say some of the stereotypes were eradicated.
What would you say then?
I said, well, black comedy is a medium by which a people can look at issues that affect them on a day-to-day basis and find a funny part of it.
But surely comedy is comedy. There isn't a label to it as such, is there?
Well, there is, if you tend to follow what the media says.
Right.
It wasn't black people in the first place who began to label black comedy, black comedy.
I see. Right, that's very interesting. Now, we're talking, in fact, about the sort of new wave, if you like, about black comedy. But certainly the pioneers of comedy were people like the guest that Jackie has got about.
Right, all the details from me. The two people we have today have been around long before the Comedy Club was even imagined. They're Kenny Lynch and Charlie Williams.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, both
Pleasure.
of you. Kenny, let's talk to you first. What did you think of Sheila?
I thought she was great.
It's the kind of comedy you
Yeah,
enjoy?
she's funny. I don't know if it was black or white comedy. It was just funny and made me laugh.
Now, you did say to me that you don't particularly enjoy alternative comics.
When I said that, I was talking about the kind of university comedy. You know, this new wave comedy doesn't mean much. I like Rory Bremner, people like that, but some of the stuff I hear, to me, they call it alternate comedy, and to me, it's no laughs. That's what it means to me.
Charlie, what do you make of Sheila?
Quite good, because I very seldom see a comedian.
Absolutely.
Especially a coloured comedian now, and so it was a little
refreshing
breath of fresh air.
Right.
And I enjoyed it. I don't know how she's gone in Yorkshire.
How different is she and what she does to what you do, though?
Well, she's different in the fact that she's not a stand-up comedian. She doesn't tell. It's like situation.
Observation.
And how good she is at telling jokes as a stand-up comedian, I don't know yet. I'll have to
You don't
see
think
a
that's
bit
been
more of
tested
it.
yet?
It's not a matter of that, it's a matter of how much she gets exposed over the length and breadth of the country.
I don't actually see what it's got to do with black comedy, though. I mean, I don't know what black comedy is.
Well, I think that's what the
Comedy is
discussion
comedy,
is
as far as-
about. You don't think there is such a thing?
No, she got up there, so there was no black jokes in it or anything. It was just a comedian telling jokes.
Right, let's move the discussion on, because we will get onto that a bit more, actually, Kenny. We've seen Sheila Hyde tonight. We've also heard from Kenny and Charlie, who have quite a different type of humour. Colin?
Well, I think that's quite important. The differences are stressed, because these really, Charlie and Kenny, are the pioneers of it all, who started the ball rolling. And Sheila, if you like, has moved it a stage further. Now, who over here enjoyed Sheila's performance? Anybody? You're going to stick your hand, rush to me. I've talked to this man once before. Sheila's just over there, and she's cringing. Who's going to give me an opinion then? Yes, let me turn my back on you and come this way. Let's just get in cosy here. And what did you think of Sheila's performance then?
Right. Well, I thought it was a very good performance. I think, first of all, the pioneers of comedy, I think most of them went into a market where they weren't really serving the whole community. They were making fun at themselves, jokes about the banana boat and things like that. And I think nowadays, black people are being more normal in comedy, and they're trying to attract everyone. Now, when you say comedy is comedy, I don't agree, because a lot of the early comedians, I think a lot of their jokes were very offensive. And I think nowadays, black people are trying to be more themselves, and they're trying to make fun at issues that are not offensive.
Well, for those of you who may not have seen the work that Charlie Williams does, here's a clip.
Thank you very much, thank you. Lovely, that's grand. Good afternoon, we'd like to... Thank you, lads, thank you, we can hear you. You're playing well. Wow! Good grief. I said, play me on, not back to flaming Africa. Good afternoon, my flowers. Right colour, wrong accent. Hello, little cousin. All right, my flower, bit darker than me, they've been in the oven a lot longer. No! Bless them.
So, Kenny, what did you think? I know you've seen Charlie before. What do you make of his
Well,
humour?
I've always thought Charlie was a funny man, no matter what he said, because he has a very funny accent for a start, which I always loved from him. You know, hello, flower, and all. I mean, that's funny to me as well. And Charlie was doing the kind of comedy that we had to try and do. I don't regard myself as a comic, by the way. I never have done. I'm just somebody who likes to be around comedy all the time.
Do you have any problem at all with the way he deals with colour and includes colour?
Myself, none at all.
It's something that you'd be comfortable with?
Absolutely.
I think perhaps if I can take the show, there are a few people in the audience who might have a bit of problem with what Charlie has just told us. Barrington, you were sort of flagging me down and wanting to say a few words. What is your opinion then, if I can just squeeze in here, of what Charlie's been, is his sort of comedy?
Well, personally, it's not the kind of comedy I like, because in his opening comments in that act, he derided certain things about black culture in terms of the drums playing, which in stereotypical terms and certain forms are associated with Africa, and he used that as a means to get the audience on his side to laugh. OK,
that all sounds very heavy, but surely comedy is about laughing and laughing at yourself. What do you see to that point of view?
I think it's good to laugh at yourself, but I think at the same time you've got to keep it in context, and you've got to realise that black people throughout you know, coming to this country and so on, there have been a lot of deep ingrained stereotypes about black people.
So you found that offensive, did
Yes,
you?
I found it offensive.
I mean, that's quite strong words. I mean, does anybody else here, I can just squeeze out for a little second, does anybody else here find that sort of stuff offensive? What about the gentleman here?
Well, yes, I love Charlie Williams in comedy. It's the kind of things that you understand. He himself get a joke and you get a joke just the same. You understand it quite all right.
Right, so would you find that offensive, what he says, in terms of his references to colour and all the rest of it?
No, I don't find it offensive. I take it as a joke.
Right. So that's quite a mixed bag of responses then to Charlie, isn't it, Jackie?
Yeah, certainly a range of opinions. Charlie, can you see why people are making some of these criticisms, and do you accept them?
Yes, I can see there'll always be criticism, whatever you do.
Yes, but this is specifically of the way you deal with race. People are using words like offensive and deriding. That's quite strong language.
Yeah, because it's quite logical that you'll find some people that object to what you're doing.
you'll find the fors and the against. You
So
can't...
would you accept the specific criticisms
Yes,
about what they're saying to you?
I accept any criticism,
what will
but
you do
I accept
about that,
praise
then?
as well.
But what will you do about the criticism?
Nothing, because if criticism is in the minority, I'll head on the way I've been brought up and the way I've always done.
So you just don't care about the kind of emotions
I do
expressed?
care, and I accept it. I say, well, fair enough, if that's your kettle of fish, my old son, I'll abide by it. But whenever I've got the majority on my side, then I'll stay where I am.
I'd like to say, I think that in a way, Charlie, you know, and myself and a few earlier black comics, you know, had to do that thing because that's what people really wanted in them days. You know, and I'm a true believer that comedy in the workplace and in the community has brought racial tension, has got rid of racial tension in so many places. I think that it's always been because of the jokes that people would do, Irish jokes, Jewish jokes, they brought the community much closer together in the workplace and in the community, I think.
But I mean, you've certainly been in the business for quite some time. Isn't it time? If you had to do those things in the early days, do you still need to be doing them now?
I don't know about Charlie. I don't do that sort of thing myself anyway. I sing most of the time and I say a few funny things, but I just think that comedy is comedy. If
I've got to stop you there, Kenny. Charlie, you're not going to change your material. We accept that. Thank you very much.
Well, someone who has made changes to his material is Lenny Henry, who's arguably Britain's most successful comedian.
Respect is due to
Yeah. Look good. Black comedy, eh? Do you believe it? What a weird and wonderful thing.
Yeah.
What's it all about then? You don't know? Well, I know we do comedy, black comedy. We don't do black comedy. We've never done a black comedy. I've seen loads of black comedies on the TV, and not one of them got black people in it. No, I'm not talking about that sort of black comedy. Just try and remember, you're black, and you do comedy, right?
All right. So someone like Jim Davison does white comedy.
Well, it's definitely white, but I don't know if it's definitely comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see, yeah. So we perform black comedy, yeah? That's what you're saying? Yeah. But we make the white people laugh as well.
Well, that's the beauty of it, you see.
Oh, I see.
Because what it is, it's black people performing comedy without being derogatory to black people.
That's different, isn't it?
It's very different.
Yeah. Good, that, eh?
Yeah, very good.
So only black people can perform this sort of comedy then?
Well, at the moment, yes.
Oh, right.
But times they are a-changing, you see.
Yeah.
See, to be black is now very hip and trendy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trendy.
Trendy.
And hip. So, right, if a white person is culturally aware enough, he or she can be black without actually being black.
How do they work that out then?
I don't know.
Bloody clever though, isn't it?
They're bloody clever.
So, I mean, okay then, why don't they just call it comedy?
Ishmael, man. Sometimes I dispute with you, I really do, honestly. Why don't they just call it comedy? What a cheek, you know what I mean?
Well, why don't they?
I don't know.
Curtis and Ishmael, of course, regulars on the black comedy scene. Of course, the 291 Club at Hackney as well is just currently going at the moment.
Yeah.
A plug there for you guys. How do you describe the type of humour that you do? What name or label do you give to your comedy?
Comedy.
That's it.
Basically.
Yeah. Do you not get into discussing the issues about whether it's black
you
comedy
do.
or
All we got to bear in mind is that we're not offending black people. That's the foremost thing. And the second foremost thing is that it's funny, basically.
What is your view then of the stuff that Charlie Williams does?
Well, I can imagine that when Charlie Williams was doing his material, it was years ago.
And that's the stuff that he had to
And
do
that's the stuff that he had to
be
do,
accepted.
but-
You know? But we come a long way from there.
There again, saying it is that there's no need to be doing it now. He's saying he's going to serve the majority.
We come a long way from there, and I mean,
You know?
people shouldn't have to do that anymore, because we come a long way now. You know?
We've come a long way, and
So I don't think that you got to, like...
it's like he's saying he's going to do it to make his money, and fair enough. But to serve the majority, and the majority is a white audience, I'm sure you can make a white audience laugh without demeaning yourself as a black person.
Yeah.
And I know that's possible, you know what I mean? It's been done. You understand?
Yeah, that's quite strong. I mean, let's move on and talk about television work and stage work. I mean, because we'll get back to some of the issues that we talked about in a second. But how difficult is it to break into television? You had to do a lot of that stuff for you talked about before, but, you know, how difficult is it to break in?
It didn't break in.
We didn't break in.
You never break in?
No, it was a door we walked through.
No, it's hard. But I mean,
it's just a matter of trying, isn't it, and working and being seen and being in the right place at the right time.
Just don't give up, you know.
But do you feel, as Charlie says, it's appealing to a mass audience? Would you ever do that sort of comedy in order to get that kind of appeal?
No, we would never be derogatory. We'd never offend black people.
There's no point in doing it if that's what you're doing it for. There's no point.
Because what we're trying to do is get somewhere so we can be appreciated by our own people, you know, as well as the whole.
Because too many years, black people have been looking at things that are funny and making.
But do you think that Charlie's comedy brings an element of racial harmony there?
Nah, I think the jokes Charlie was telling years ago were used in the workplace to other black workers. I think they took it.
And that's why got a laugh like.
Anyway, that was a long time ago. I think, you know, the new generation is coming. As David Bryan said, the black comedy is growing, and hopefully in the future we'll see better progress between black.
Because there's a lot of space for black artists on the circuits now.
Sure. Kenny, can I come to you, and then we'll come to Charlie perhaps. What then was your view when you first started out in television? Did you think you had to do those sort of jokes in order to make the money, in order to appear, in order to be there?
As I said before, I was never really a comic, and I never did really do black jokes, not the way that Charlie does them and all that. I mean, I just slip one or two in occasionally when I'm in between songs. I mean, that's what I basically did. And I agree with everything the two lads have said. I mean, I don't think that you have to do that now. In fact, the other night I went to a kind of, it wasn't a stag, but a sort of a stag night, and there was a comic there, and he was doing so many black jokes, I mean, the type that the lads and the people here don't like, and I don't like myself too much, that after he got boring, and he finished up with cricket claps, which he should have done. So and people don't like it anymore.
You think Charlie's in that same role?
No, I don't think Charlie's that much, because Charlie tells
date.
Great gags outside of that too.
Yeah, but you do find that the stuff that Charlie does when it refers to colour, do you find that's still a problem today?
No, I don't think we can do a lot of it, because I don't think people like him anymore. I don't think the white people like him anymore either. I think it's all over. But I must say one thing, is I do think that it's because of people like Charlie and maybe myself in a way that Sheila and people like the lads here can do other things now. I mean, they're taking over from us, what we try to do. I mean, we didn't want to have to do that sort of thing. We couldn't get a laugh any other way, basically, when we started 25 years ago. I don't do them jokes anymore at all, but I mean, I must stress that I do think that people like the lads, who I think are great. I've seen them a lot of times on television. I've never seen Sheila before, but I think they're good. And I think it's us that got them there. When I say us, I mean the early black comics.
Sure. Kenny, I'd like to get in at this point. I understand the way you feel about Charlie and the distinctions you're making, but you yourself have played in front of segregated audiences. I mean, did you feel, as a black man performing to a white audience in a racist society, how did you feel, come to terms with that?
Well, I only went to Swaziland because all my life I spent my life running down the South African and apartheid and all that sort of thing, and I thought I'd best to go over there and see exactly what I'm doing, and I went over there, and when I came back I was worse. You know, I mean, it was bad. I went to see what I was doing, but actually, when I went there, I went as a singer, so I didn't do jokes. I had a 14-piece
And they accepted
family.
you as a black man telling a story.
And I wouldn't work in there was a completely mixed audience, and I wouldn't work other way. It was in my contract before I went that I sang to a multiracial audience.
Right. Well, you've both had very successful careers in television. I think someone that we can look forward to is going to have even bigger and bigger success is Sheila, and she's having a chat with Colin right now.
Yes, we certainly do hope that Sheila will do big things.
So do I.
Do big things. I mean, how do you regard your humour? Is it more mainstream, you think, than Curtis and Ishmael?
I suppose so, yes, if we're talking about... But we're still talking about alternative humour, really, I think. Because I have been working on the alternative cabaret circuit for a few years now, and I suppose that's different, actually. I mean, the black comedy thing is sort of new compared to that.
How's that received by both black and white people?
Well, I mean, you know, if it's a good gig, it's a good gig. I mean, I've played all over the country, in fact, and I've done sort of different sorts of sizes of venues. I mean, obviously mostly alternative venues, and I've done the Black Comedy Club, I've done non-black comedy clubs, and you know, it's really whether it's a good gig or not. I mean, there's no that much difference between black audiences and white audiences, except black audiences are more vocal, I think.
More vocal?
Yes.
Right.
Hear that, everybody?
This lot, no. Maybe not. But do you think that you want to push more into TV and leave out the stage business? And what part of it do you really enjoy?
I think actually I enjoy performing live.
Performing live?
Yeah.
Yeah, TV or stage in that sense?
I think actually stage really, but
Right.
I mean, TV is fun for I suppose I mean for short bites and doing sketches and stuff.
Cancelled out the contract.
But there's just a lot. The reason why you do it is just for that connection between the audience and the performer, and you can get that on TV if it's set up properly.
Great.
But you get it on stage as well.
Jackie, was there something you wanted to ask?
There was indeed. Just to pick up on a point that Charlie made, actually, about being such a small number of black female comedians. Do you think that's going to change, Sheila?
Yes, I hope so. I mean, since the Black Comedy Club started, I've become aware of at least 3 others, and I think the more black people come to see black comedians on stage, there'll be people in the audience saying, "Oh, I could do that," and I think it'll go on from there.
Jackie.
Right, let's go back to David. David, what do you think the future is for black comedians in Britain?
I think it's quite strong. I mean, I think, firstly, the black community has made black comedians come forward in the numbers they have done so far and begin to spread throughout the circuit. We haven't really had any link with the past from Kenny and company because we haven't had that stage influence in the black community. So when we established the venues, they've made the openings. So to a great extent, the black community has been the platform from which black comedy can really spring, and it has begun to move around London quite actively now.
But when is it going to start to make money?
Well, I wonder that myself sometimes. I think when we begin to get beyond the debate about are black comedians funny, I think the issue is that they are black, they are comedians, they are very conscious about their responsibility to their community. And at the end of the day, they are very funny, but they're also challenging, and I think that's vital for the life of comedy.
Can I just bring Charlie in here? Charlie, the Black Comedy Club operating in London and moving around the country, is this a positive thing for comedy, do you think?
It's a good start.
It's a good start.
Obviously, and but further to what David was saying, and talking about the boys, the point is, in any business or any profession, if you've got the talent, it'll come through. It's as simple as that.
I just want to come back to you, David. I mean, it does seem to be very London-based at the moment. You operate from Albany Empire and from Brixton Village. Is that going to change?
It's going to change, and it's changing already. We already use the Electric Cinema in Portobello Road, and we're now doing shows in Leicester, Wolverhampton, and Liverpool.
I must stop you right there. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Over to Colin.
Very London-centric, you were saying. I mean, we've got people in the audience from Derby and Wolverhampton as well. Would you go to something like black comedy clubs? Would you do that? Let me just sit down here.
I would go to a black comedy club.
Mm-hmm. Who else in the audience feels that that type of humour is essentially very positive? I mean, do you have an opinion on that? Let's just come up to you here. What's your name?
Dave.
Dave,
My
yeah.
name's Dave.
What's your feeling about that?
Well, I think it's positive if it, like I say, doesn't demeanour the black group, the black people as a whole. I think the new wave of comedy that's coming in now, presenting a whole new way of presenting comedy, the advantage that we get out of this is that white people are seeing that, yeah, we can laugh, but we don't have to make racial jokes.
Right, sure,
Yeah?
that's the message. So there's a great message coming from it. It's very encouraging that black comedy will be here to stay. Jackie?
Yeah, there's clearly a lot of support for this, and there is a serious side to comedy. And I think we've definitely seen tonight, there's no doubt that black comedy is going to be big in the 90s. Our very great thanks to David, to Kenny and to Charlie for joining us in our first programme.
And let us not forget, hold it down just a second, let us not forget our performers as well, Curtis and Israel and Sheila Hyde. Of course, if you're wondering what this is...
It's a molecule.
Because what we're doing is getting ready for next week's programme, which is all about genetic engineering.
See you then.
See you next week. Bye.
Studio debate about Africa's contribution to world history, hosted by Jackie Harper and Colin Charles.
Welcome again to Hearsay.
Yes, welcome. This week we discuss a subject that some of you may not be too familiar with, Afrocentricity. Jackie, what does Afrocentricity mean to you?
It means knowing your relationship to Africa.
Sure. We're going to find out also what the audience think of Afrocentricity. Start with this gentleman here. Afrocentricity, does that mean anything to you?
Well, exactly what it says, Africa-centered, which means thought, expression, action. Everything should be focused towards your African heritage.
Well, we'll be finding out a lot more about Africa and African heritage. Well, someone in the studio now who's got something definitely to do with the move to Afrocentricity is rapper Black Radical Mark II.
I know your heart went numb, cause you're the illegitimate son of an African mama. Some blacks are dumb, cause they run from or shun all or some of the truth where they're from. When I was young, I used to bubble as properly been told of the trouble in Africa. With a brand new oppressor, persistently putting my people in pressure. Blam, with a gun in my hand, I'd liberate that oppressive state. But we don't need heroes, we're hereditary heroes, descendants of pharaohs. Lethal weapon too, that's fantasy. I don't need that lavish to make me anti-South Africa. It's perverse, the film looks bad, but reality's far, far worse. Cause we are all African people. All African people. Calling the men, the women, the children of African descent. Know who you are. Born there in England, Africa, in my roots, but I'm English youth. Centuries our pride has been torn and battered. Africans have been scattered to the winds like kites. So I fight for your rights and declare that whites, yearly to century, historically, physically, mentally, use inventory as entry. No matter where they take me, I'll be African and know they can't make me. Singing a vagrant's tone, saying wherever I lay my hat is my home. Home is where the heart is. The heart is in Africa where the human race started. Tried and they tried to devalue our pride, but I never complied. I stand firm cause I am a descendant of the original man. So my Africa pendant sits on top of my chest. So to suggest the original is the best. Animated man from Black Mud was edited out of the Bible. Africans are applicable, viable. Apolitical system, communal, tribal. I know your heart went numb, cause you're the illegitimate son of an African mama. Some blacks are dumb, cause they run from or shun all or some of the truth where they're from. Africa. Africa. Cause we are all African peoples. All African people. When I was young, I used to bubble as properly been told of the trouble in Africa. With a brand new oppressor, persistently putting my people in pressure. Blam, with a gun in my hand, I'd liberate that oppressive state. But we don't need heroes, we're hereditary heroes, descendants of pharaohs. Lethal weapon too, that's fantasy. I don't need that lavish to make me anti-South Africa. It's perverse, the film looks bad, but reality's far, far worse. Cause we are all African people. All African people. Africa. Africa. Cause we are all African peoples. All African peoples. Calling the men, the women, the children of African descent. One heart, one mind, one destination. Peace.
Felix, that went down very well. Or should I call you Black Radical? Tell me in slightly slower words what the essence of that rap was all about.
Basically, my Radic's point is a call for black unity. It's a call for Afrocentric thinking. Afrocentric thinking to me comes in two stages. Firstly, the spiritual and mental relation of black people to Africa as their homeland and a spiritual base. And then secondly, well, afterwards, a possible physical link there, using it as an economical and political spring to launch into black progression for the future.
Right, we'll hear some more about those thoughts. I think we'll definitely hear some more about those thoughts afterwards, but let's introduce our other guests. They should help us tonight, certainly, to get to grips with this subject. We welcome former Governor of the BBC, now a top executive of the Broadcasting Standards Council, Jocelyn Barrow, OBE. Right, from the USA, a photo historian who has amassed a huge collection of Afrocentric images, Wayne Chandler. And we're also joined by the author of a controversial book, Black Athena, in which he argues that world civilization did not start with Greece, but in Afro-Asian societies, Professor Martin Bernal. Right, Jocelyn, we'll start with you. First of all, your reaction to the messages that rap's bringing out, particularly that of Black Radical.
Well, I endorse them 100%, and what I ought to add that I feel extremely proud to be able to see young people, after all these years that I've been in Britain, taking that sort of leadership, taking that sort of message out to the young. It's something that I've worked very hard for in a variety of ways, to see black people have a full expression, to ground themselves in an understanding of who they are, particularly young people born in this country, who, unlike me, who came from the Caribbean, who knew who I was from the time I started out, had a strong sense of identity, and grew up at a fortunate time in the Caribbean when you had people like Eric Williams, etc., talking about our heritage, talking to us about the history that we should be reading, rather than the history that we were being taught in schools or universities. So I'm very proud of that sort of message, and I hope more people will take it on.
It's a positive message, then.
Very positive.
But Black Radical, is this anything new that you're saying?
Well, to me, black music is consistently reinventing itself. Afrocentricity in rap is just an extension of what's always been going. Black music has always been about the black reality and about black progression. So, I mean, we've seen it in jazz, we've seen it in reggae, you know, we've seen it in all forms of black music, and rap is just like the further stepping stone now to take it to the youth once again.
Right, so tell me about your name. You call yourself Black Radical Mark II. What's that all about?
The Mark system is just a grading system that I thought of a few years ago, whereas a Black Radical Mark I is a kind of person who can dedicate his whole life to the emancipation of black people, both mentally and physically. Whereas a Black Radical Mark II is someone who has the knowledge, or is trying to amass the knowledge, but at the moment can't dedicate their whole life to that course. That's where I think I fit in at the moment.
You can't quite commit your whole life to it. Why is that? Very briefly.
Well, I think a lot of it's got to do with the position you are in. I mean, you know, as we've been talking about, the youth are now getting to grips with the realities once again through rap music as that medium. And I mean, there's going to be children with parents, there's that type of conflict. There's people who've also got to survive. You know, not everybody can be a leader, but everyone can help. We're all part of it, and that's what the whole unity drive's about.
This is actually Michael who wrote the music to Black Radical's tune. In terms of education, can rap really provide a strong message?
Well, see, black music, as you just said, has always provided a strong message. Rap relates to young people, and it's, you know, it shows them, you know, what's going on, so they can learn about their African history, and it gives them a springboard so they can learn and read about themselves through books and everything else. Black music.
How important does everybody feel black music is? Can I get an opinion on how important that is? Let's go to the gentleman back here. Let's get in quickly to you. How important then?
Very important, but we must be aware. My concern is, when are we moving? Because Garvey preached Africanism, Malcolm X has preached Africanism. Reggae music, I've preached Africa. I recently come back from Africa, and what the youths in Africa are saying, they're looking to inspiration from the West, but they're saying, well, Rasta's been preaching Africanism, where are they? Where are you? We want you to come here, not just singing and talking about it. So hopefully the new movement in rap is going to take it full steam ahead, and I can't wait for that move. We just don't want to be talking about it. We want to move now.
That's great. I'm interested actually in the black aspect of what Africa is waiting for. Do people feel that Africa is actually prepared for the wider diaspora of black Africans who want to get involved with Africa? Do people feel that? Do people feel that Africa has welcomed them with open arms? Can I take this gentleman over here?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that the motherland has always been prepared to receive its people. I think it's its people's willingness to...
The heads of government, have they done that in Africa, though? Have they said, you know, come in, help us? Have they done that in the way they ought to?
I think over the years, in terms of my recent, you know, knowledge of the situation in Africa, I think there have been people in Africa who have conveyed that message. I think the Africans outside Africa has to be willing to take up that fight wherever we are. more importantly, to make that journey sometime. I mean, I hope to do that one day.
Sure, sure. Is this an early message? This is a new message that we're taking on in terms of our African identity. Because what I'm quite interested to learn is, do you think that it's been suppressed? Do you think that the knowledge that we've had over the years, has it been suppressed?
Yeah.
Definitely. Can I come to the gentleman here?
Yeah.
In fact, you're Beanie Brown and work at the Cultural Centre in Birmingham, don't you?
Yeah.
Right, and what's your view there?
Well, of course, our African history and everything about African people and this planet Earth has been suppressed. And it's been deliberately suppressed to mislead us and keep us in an inferior position in which we are as African people. Because we, as a people, we belong to a continent. We give civilization to the world. And nobody wants us to know about our past. If you know about your past...
Who's the nobody? Who's the nobody?
Nobody is the system which you call today, which everybody is talking about, Europe, USA, right down to across the planet. Everybody is against the African man and woman. Nobody will say that the Africans have contributed to civilization, to world civilization. So our role as African people is to take it to our people. Rock music can do it, yeah?
Yeah.
Other music will do it. But you ask the question whether African leaders have said to us to come home. Kwame Nkrumah has said that the sons and daughters of Africa should...
Kwame Nkrumah was some time ago. It was some time ago.
Yeah, and I've met President Sankara in Burkina Faso in 1986. And his view is that our people should return to link up with culture and economically we should link up, and politically we should link up as African people.
So there's a strong message, you think, coming from Africa?
Yes, there is a strong message.
A really strong message. Good. OK, let's see what the historians think about that then, Jackie.
Yeah, let's take this to Professor Bernal. You've obviously been involved in showing the contribution that black people have made to ancient civilization. Why did you think you had to get into this subject?
I couldn't help it. It was so fascinating and seemed to me so important. I mean, there were two messages which seemed to me not to have got through. One was that Egypt had played a central role in the formation of ancient Greece, which is what all the ancient Greeks themselves said. And the other was that Egypt was part of Africa, and, you know, integrally part of Africa, that the ancient Egyptian language was an African or an Afro-Asiatic language. That's why I call my book The Afro-Asiatic, because it's this group of languages. And that one of the key reasons why both these stories had not been told was that it was inconceivable to Northern Europeans, it was impossible for them to believe that Africans could have played a key role in the formation of a civilization of Europe.
Well, you clearly believe in a conspiracy. What's the hard evidence of this conspiracy?
I don't believe in a conspiracy because I believe that this was something that was endemic throughout the scholarly world in Northern Europe in the 19th and 20th century. That the racism permeates every nook and cranny of European and North American society. And therefore, if the ancient Greeks had written that the Egyptians were black, or if the ancient Greeks had written that the Egyptians played a key role in the civilizing of Greece, that was impossible because they knew better. That racism told them that the Greeks could not be true on this.
How could they get away with such a lie?
It took some time. That it took 60 or 70 years of historians coming forward saying we can't believe the Greeks on this is not true. There are confusions. I mean, that the Egyptian population is a northeast African population, and therefore it doesn't look like a West African population. It doesn't stop it being Africa. I mean, people have been in Africa longer than any other continent. That's where mankind began, and therefore you get a greater variation of human types in Africa.
Let's turn to Wayne Chandler. When did you begin to collect the visual evidence of the ancient African present worldwide, and also why?
It's been about 2 decades now, and mainly because we as black people live in isolated pockets globally, various countries making substantial contributions in present times as well as in antiquity, and we really don't know what the other is doing. We really don't know how we've contributed as a race of people globally to cultures, to civilization as a whole, let alone what each individual isolated pocket is doing in the here and now.
Tell me about some of the ways that you've used the remarkable photographs.
Basically, the way that they're used is to dramatize the presence of African people in various cultures: Mexico, China, India, Southeast Asia. When you talk about black people in China, for example, the first dynasty in China being black, not just being black, but actually laying the foundation of culture and civilization for the dynasties to follow. When you see a Chinese person, or you examine Chinese culture or civilization after that, you look at it in an altogether different perspective. And it's the same thing with India and Southeast Asia.
Wayne, thank you. Now, Colin's been looking at some of your images with people in the audience. Let's get their views.
Thanks, Jackie. We have just got a few pictures from Wayne Chandler's collection. Now, everybody knows that massive pyramids and monumental figures like this one are characteristic of ancient Egyptian civilization. But how about these? This is a 9th century bronze Buddha head from Vietnam. And over here, Saint Maurice, he's the patron saint of Germany. He, in fact, was born in Egypt. This one over here is a 9th century bronze